This archaeology. Get out of there, Dan!
And now
are we
we're
live?
We are live now. Sorry.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Hello, everyone. I was busy, too busy admiring my TV.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll start off by saying hi to Amy. She's on, and also Dilip Kumar is on.
Oh, really? Oh, neat.
Yeah. So, or at least gave a thumbs up. I don't know if the watching statistics are exactly right most of the time. So, but yeah. Anyway, so looks like you are at home.
Yeah.
Probably you getting ready to head out for the week?
Yeah, well, it's a long story, but I'm getting ready to head to the Bay Area. Then
okay.
Then to work.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Little trip.
I didn't want to get there too late today.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
why we're doing a little earlier than we normally do.
Oh, that's true. I just didn't want to give everyone my itinerary.
I hear you. Well, I have no problem giving my itinerary. I'm in Canada right now, so it's
still at the same place?
I think when we talked last, still at the same place. When we talked last, we had just gotten into the country the day before, I think, and we're in the same park for the next week. We're here for 2 weeks total. So yeah. But when you talk to us next time, and depending on your schedule, it might be a little bit later in the day because we've got 2-day travel planned. We're traveling away from here to. It's only about 4.5 hours away, but it's kind of like a winery district in the mountains.
Oh, really?
And we're spending the night there. Yeah, and then we're moving on, which should only be a few hours on Sunday morning, but due to check-in times and stuff like that, I'm not sure when we're going to be there. And but we will be in Revelstoke, British Columbia, which is up in the mountains. So that'll be fun for about a week.
Interesting. It sounds kind of
yeah.
It sounds kind of I don't know. Sounds interesting.
The name is amazing. I love the name. I don't know. I think it comes from somebody's last name, like somebody that settled there.
Well, it just made me think of Tarzan for some reason.
I don't know why, but sure. Yeah.
Well, I think in like the lore, quote unquote, he's from like Greystoke or something. like that.
Oh, right. Yeah, there you go. Wait, no, that's
Or that's
is
someone
that
else.
Tarzan? That's not Tarzan. That's He-Man, isn't it? I think.
Not a clue.
Yeah.
In fact, the only thing I know for a fact is the fact that for in commemoration of next year's Indiana Jones 5, Lego is reintroducing a Indiana Jones playset.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I
And
used to have the little Indiana Jones Lego playset.
and the only reason I know that is because my new TV, like Google has finally figured out how to put ads on this on the stupid Chromecast app. Whereas before it used to be just like a tolerable like 10 seconds and you wouldn't even notice. But now I actually have to like hit skip. Otherwise it's like 20-minute video, you know, and then like an hour in commercials. And I'm like, ugh. Anyway, I only know that because that's one of the things that Google keeps telling me for some weird reason.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, there you go. All right. So what's going on this week?
Honestly? Oh my God. You know, like I didn't want to get all personal and everything, but my God, for the first time forever, my apartment is actually presentable. Ish.
I mean, aside from the new TV, it looks about the same to me from the back, from the background.
Well, the thing is that you know, there are many areas you couldn't see, and one of those things is you know, when you're only home for like a week, for like a day or two, suddenly you know you just get home and you just start stuffing things wherever they fit.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And now I'm like, my God, I can't even invite anyone over or let anyone see inside this place. So finally, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna clean up. So I literally spent this whole week just like cleaning up.
Yeah. And you know, that's actually kind of funny you're talking about that because it reminds me of a conversation I had this morning.
Ooh.
Recording the CRM Archaeology podcast that's going to come out July 27th, I think the date is, a week and a half from now on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we interviewed Ken Atchison of Landward Research over in the UK. He works with Doug Rocks McQueen, who is been on the CRM Art podcast for the last 9.5 years, and Christopher Dorr, who has done lots of different things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You slam your microphone.
Yeah. I've heard that name like around forever.
Yeah, he's been around. He's done all kinds of things. He's been in, you know, RPA, and really? He runs a business right now called Heritage Business International, I think. Yeah. And he's more on the regulatory law and business side of things these days. But him and Ken collaborated to write a paper about the careers problem in CRM. They call it. They say CRM doesn't have a jobs problem; it has a careers problem, because there's in the UK and the United States, there's plenty of jobs for people right now. Like it's if you want to work in archaeology, you can work in archaeology. Like there's no shortage of jobs, but there's a shortage of people that want to do that. So.
Oh wait, what do you mean?
Well, there's a shortage of people that the reason there's so many jobs is because there's not enough people to do the work. But when you look at the statistics, there's plenty of people graduating with a degree in anthropology or archaeology that can do the work. But because of the pandemic and, you know, the stuff that's happening in other fields, people have just decided in mass that this isn't a career path that they want to go down. And
good for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's better for people who want to stay in because it makes it more, you know, makes it less competitive, which is always good for advancement. But I was like, well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you know, it hopefully will force a rethink of the industry, because, like, you know, when we first got in, you know, we knew, you know, there were people, literally, I met people who, like, I just want to be a field tech forever, because not only do I want to be a field tech forever, I never want to fill out paperwork, touch the paperwork. I just want to be here and just, like, walk, or, you know.
Yeah.
And then you met the other sorts of people who are like, I don't ever want to be in the field. I just want to be in an office somewhere. Right. And so you ended up with a really weird mismatch where there was no career progression and everything was very skewed because the people in the office had no clue. And then, you know, you had all these.
And herein lies. Yeah, exactly. And herein lies the two problems that I saw out of this discussion. And one of them is looking at actual people that have gone up, have moved up, right? Like I'll never forget the first time I was offered a crew chief position on a project, and I was like, oh, so this includes a pay raise or something, right? And it was on an existing project, and I didn't even remember the circumstances, but I just remember being made a crew chief for whatever reason or another.
Yeah.
And it was like a 50-cent pay raise. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Wait, was that a
so
lot?
I've got to do what now? No. And I'm like, I've got to do what now for an extra $4 a day? like, like you're asking me to do this, and I'm making $4 a day more. Like I can't even buy a latte at Starbucks for $4, right? Like,
especially now.
And you want me to be the crew chief. Yeah. And then it doesn't go up that much more, when you're asked to be a project manager. But if you want to go be a project manager, you got to go get a $40,000 degree first and pay off that for the next 30 years of your life, right? So, it's really difficult to sell this as a career. Yeah. That's part of the problem I can see. It's really difficult to sell it. And it's one thing, Ken, it always has been. You're right. And we've always tried to sell it as, yeah, but you're an archaeologist. Ooh, fancy, right? Like you are an archaeologist and you get to do this now. So you better shut up and be happy that you get to call yourself an archaeologist, basically. But the thing that was really getting me is this whole discussion, and there's a lot of stuff in like Archeo Field Techs in the wake of Kaylin's passing, the field tech that died last week. Or the week before. We did a special episode on CRM Arc about personal responsibility and stuff like that we released a couple days later.
Yeah, I listened to
it. Well, thanks. Yeah. And we just wanted to get out there and just kind of address some things. But with the commentary I can see online about we need to start a union that'll help, and when are companies going to wake up and blah blah blah. It's the same old stuff, man. It's like people expect someone else to solve their problems for them, and in the companies and the organizations out there are just simply never going to solve problems that are good solved for field technicians.
Well, the thing is,
they're never going to do it.
Well, they are solving it, but they're mostly solving it by avoiding the industry altogether or just getting out. They're basically voting with their feet.
Okay. Right. Field techs are solving it that way, but they're not solving it through any actionable sort of, movement or coalescence towards the thing. And it makes me think of a couple ideas I've had in the past that have sort of coalesced now that we're full-time RVers. I had the idea a long time ago. It wasn't an idea. It was just a passing thought as I'm traveling around being a field tech. I'm like, you know what? A lot of people complain about hotels.
Always.
A lot of people complain about different things. Excuse me. And I thought it would be nice to have an organization, and I was really thinking about this before Airbnb got really big, because it's kind of like Airbnb, but it was basically, if I could own houses, big houses across the country, and then rent out the spaces specifically to field techs in Airbnb style, but with all the amenities they would need, like, a good mudroom for cleaning up your field clothes at the end of the day, just acknowledging who is actually renting these spaces. In the end, that would never work because you need a place to stay that's as close to your project as possible. Well, and how can we get houses in all those areas? But
I can think of two things. I remember, technically three examples. I'll go over the terrible example last, but when I was on the Ruby pipeline, Far Western rented out many houses because in a certain section in the Oregon, technically we were still on the Nevada side, but we were in the we were basically right on in the Shoulder Wilderness, right on the border with Oregon, and there were no hotels there. There was a campground, but most people back then didn't have there was no van life back then, and everyone who was staying at that place would just stay in tents. So Far Western just rented a bunch of houses in town for the duration of the project. And then, let's see, I'm not sure if you knew this, but I always forget the name of the mine or the company owner. But in Round Mountain, they actually have houses that if you ask the mine, they actually have their own houses in town that they can let you have if you don't want to stay at the one local hotel.
That Round Mountain's the one out by Austin, right?
It's down. Oh shoot, it's down. Was it Paradise Valley, Happy Valley? You just make a right on the 50.
Remote, a lot of those remote mines in Nevada and other places, they had company towns for sure. Yeah, the entire town was owned by the company.
Yeah, like Round Mountain.
I was just reading one about an old historic town that was outside of Ely, actually,
Oh,
near
really?
the Ruby mine.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
I've
actually
excavated
moved a
there.
couple of times. Yeah, it was actually moved a couple of times.
Yeah, it's
But
cool.
anyway, point is, company housing is not, it's not incredibly feasible from that standpoint, just because you would have to own so many places in just the ideal locations, and it's just not gonna, it just wouldn't work out.
Well, unless you
But then,
oh, go ahead.
but then another idea that I had, again, from traveling around and having difficulties, is mail service, right?
Oh.
But now there's plenty of places around there. There's plenty of places out there where you can have your mail. My wife and I are doing this right now. We have a mailbox in Reno, and they will scan our mail as it comes in, and we can ask them to, if we wanted, we could pay for an upgraded service where they actually open it and scan everything.
Oh, really?
But right now, we just look at the letter, and we say, throw this one away, throw this one away, throw this one away.
Good
and then
you.
at some point, we have them send us a pack of mail, right? That's stuff that we think we need to look at. And they'll hold on to packages and all that kind of stuff too. And I thought a service set up specifically for archaeologists is an idea I had around that probably 10 years ago. And, never really got it off the ground, never really tried, but it was just something I was thinking about. But then it made me think, I'm like, as full-time RVers, there are any number of services available to us. We belong to the Family Motor Coach Association. We belong to the Escapees and the Offshoot Escapers. And all these things are designed around people living full-time in an RV. And then there's a whole bunch of, the Escapees group actually has these little splinter groups. They call it Birds of a Feather. It's so stupid. This was all invented by old people. It's called Birds of a Feather because birds of a feather flock together. So if there were one for podcast editing, I don't think there is, but maybe you could have a convergence, they call it, where a bunch of podcast editing RVers get it together. But there's definitely like things centered around crafting and other interests where they'll organize these get-togethers and they'll have support services for them. But there's literally nothing like that for archaeologists.
Oh, it's true.
Literally nothing, and nothing that's been coalesced to service the field tech industry. And here's a question for you.
Yeah.
If there was, what the hell would this thing cost, and would you be willing to pay for it?
You know what I mean? I was going to ask you about your mail service.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, in order to have it at a reasonable price, you need volume, first off, because it takes full-time employees to take that mail in and to process that mail on a daily basis. A lot of mail comes in. Even if it's junk mail, you can't assume something is junk. You have to scan it. You have to save it for the person until they tell you to throw it away.
Wait, what are you paying, though?
So,
just to give people an idea.
I'm trying to think. If Rachel can hear me, I don't know if Rachel can hear me. She's got her noise canceling headphones on. I want to say it's no more than like $25 or $30 a month.
Oh, that's really reasonable.
For what we're paying for. Yeah, and I think it might actually be less than that. It's a little more than that if you want them to, open your mail and scan it. There's like a per page cost. But even the per page cost is pretty low. We just don't get enough important mail to worry about.
Well, there were micro businesses, like when you were down in Quartzsite, wasn't there a guy going around there like, emptying your tanks and filling you up with water?
Yeah. And there's always those kinds of support services, right? There's one here at this park because the sewer system here is 50 years old and doesn't work very well.
Ew.
like we can't keep our tanks open because if we just left our tanks open, it would fill up the sewer system too fast. So I've got to kind of trickle it out. But
I almost
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I almost thought when you were first talking about ideas, I almost thought you were talking about, like, instead of Airbnb, kind of like a like Airbnb for RVs for like field techs or like vans or whatever.
Well, and that is the other thing I want to bring up, and I didn't get to actually talk about this on the podcast this morning because we ran out of time. But
because wasn't
teaching.
Well, wait, wasn't am I wrong in thinking? I'm not sure if she wants her name mentioned, but last June, when you were out in Elko, wasn't a company there like providing RVs for their techs?
Oh yeah, for sure. They had a couple of trailers actually. I don't really call trailers RVs, but they call them. I guess people do. To me, vehicle has an engine, so I don't call fifth wheels and trailers RVs. But anyway, there's a big disagreement about that in the RV industry. In fact, I'm looking at a trailer right now that says RV on the back of it.
Oh.
Anyway, you're totally right. There are companies that have done that in the past. Let me address a question real quick from Mark in the comments from YouTube, actually, that says, how many techs are typically assigned to a project, and what's the most field techs you've seen on a project? So
oh my God,
the first part of your question, Mark, has no answer.
Yeah.
Because there might be one person on a project, there might be 100 people on a project. It just depends on it depends on two things. It depends on the size of the project and how quickly that project needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you and I were both on the Ruby pipeline, and how many people were on that across like 3 or 4 states?
Dude. Yeah. I mean, hundreds sometimes. Yeah. Right. It just depended. So I worked on another pipeline called the Rex East pipeline, and there were a number of companies working on that. And the one company I was working for, that Rachel and I were for, there were probably 30 of us. And just from that one company. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, but there were like 4 companies, each with like 30 people.
Oh.
And, you know, so they had it split up by region. We were with a company that worked in Southern Ohio. So they had like the Southern Ohio portion of this pipeline. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the most I've ever personally worked with at one time was probably a project up in Vermont, I think it was. And I think there was about maybe 45 of us, because we had like 5 like 12-person vans, I remember, and they were all full. And I think that's the most people I've ever worked with, where you're in the same hotel, you're on the same project, and you're seeing each other every day. I've definitely worked on big projects like Vernal, Utah, when we were working with MOAC a long time ago. Dude, there were probably easily 60 or 70 people in that project, but I only ever saw 4 or 5 of them every day.
Oh, really?
Because our crew stuck together. They picked us up in the morning, and then we went out in the field and we came back. And crew housing was all over Vernal, Utah. So nobody was in the same place. So I never got to see them all. Yeah. What about you?
It has to have been the Ruby pipeline. Like, my God, we literally took over the whole Virgin Valley campground. Like, we're basically spread out over the whole thing. And which
Virgin Valley is a shit campground because it's just open and exposed and rocks everywhere. But the hot spring showers are lovely.
Oh, and now they have laundry and Wi-Fi supposedly.
Do they really? Yeah. Jesus, I haven't been there in 12 years.
But I will say though that that was like one of the bad experiences as far as housing goes. Basically, it's a long story, but Far West, well, I'm not going to mention, I probably already mentioned the name, but basically they had to upload stuff live. Like, you know, they had to, like, they couldn't, it was one of those things where they just couldn't, like, you know, just stuff things in a corner and then, like, get back to the office and throw something to someone, say, transcribe this. They had to, like, do their recording, their site recording and all their, you know, all their uploading, like, in live time.
Yeah.
And so they got an RV, a Class C, and, you know, one of those early Wi-Fi hotspots and a satellite phone. And then they're like, yeah, you know, anyone who needs, like, you know, if it's super cold, because we were there in like winter, like if it's super cold, you know, or you want to heat up your food or whatever, come inside the camper and we'll, you know, we'll let you hang out for a little while. And then one of the newly minted crew chiefs complains, like, no, this is special. This is for like VIPs. This is for, like, for people like us, not for the field techs.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so they literally would not let us use the RV for anything. And, you know, literally this, you know, this newly minted crew chief and his girlfriend would be there in the window, just like, you know, just like eating their dinner, like hanging out, watching TV and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, dude, you're such jerks.
It's so funny you're mentioning that, because my first and only camping experience in Virgin Valley was not with it was on the Ruby pipeline.
Yeah.
And it was with a crew chief that we both worked for later in Reno, but he was with I don't care about saying the name, Pacific Legacy is who I was working for. They were fine. I actually didn't mind Pacific Legacy. I never really met anybody that actually worked for the company full time, because everybody was pretty much project based. But anyway, one of the guys out there, he owned a huge fifth wheel. And he brought it out to Virgin Valley and used it as like an office. And he always said, hey, you know, because it was cold too. It was really cold when we were on that project. And he always said, hey, if you want to come in and warm up, if you want to use the kitchen, if you want to do something, feel free. And he was super cool about it. He was the project manager for that end of the pipeline. There was a couple of them in Nevada. And but like the crew chiefs, exactly like you said, the crew chiefs and the lower management, so to speak, they would go in there and just kind of like dominate the space, and never specifically said you can't use it, but I always felt like I couldn't use it, you know, as not only just being a field tech, but being a new person, not only in Nevada. That was one of our first Nevada projects. It was really, really soon in our Nevada career. And I think it was our second or third Nevada project. I know, right? Yeah. But anyway, it was just, I always got that impression. But what this all leads to is, the simple fact that I've been thinking about this for so long. I just thought I'd bring this up because I just hit like 8-year anniversary of this. Yeah, but I wrote this book back in 2014.
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's $44.95. That is a stupid price for that book.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's like 50 cents a page or something like that. It's stupid. I think it's like 160 pages or something.
Yeah,
anyway,
even survived the lawsuit, as I remember.
Well, there was never an official lawsuit. There was a letter. So yeah. Anyway, I wrote that book in an effort to, it sounds egotistical to say this, but my idea was to help improve the lives of people living on the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By just giving them some tips and tricks that not only did I learn, but I solicited stuff from other people. And there's a lot of little boxes in there that are basically written by other people that I brought in to give some ideas. Even RVing. My good friends, Dave and Deanna, they were RVing at the time. They bought an old camper, like a Class C camper. And,
was it Class C?
And we're living. It was a Class C, yeah. Ooh. It was like an old, like Winnebago style. It was pretty cool. And it was old though. They didn't pay that much money for it, and it had some problems. I mean, brand new RVs have problems. Yeah, I can't imagine what a 30, 40-year-old RV has problems. But
before I forget, let's see. Mark also says, what happens to any artifacts you find? Are they photographed in situ, put in boxes, and put in storage? That just makes me laugh because I remember you had a tough time finding a curation facility for some of the projects you've been on in California. Yeah. And I know that's like considered a big crisis. More importantly, that's like not the point of archaeology. The point of archaeology is not to put stuff in boxes, but is to record sites and curate sites or preserve.
Yeah, and again, Mark, that really just depends on not only the state that you're working in, but who owns the land that you're working on.
I guess that's true too.
So yeah, because if you're in California on private land, the landowner owns the artifacts.
True.
You know what I mean? So, but if you're on some sort of state land or something like that, it really depends on the curation agreement. It could be the CRM company, because if you remove anything from context or excavation, you can't just put it back in the hole, right? It's no longer in situ. Yeah, you destroy the site. So it has to go somewhere. It can't go back in the hole. It has to go somewhere. In some cases, it goes back to the Native American group that has jurisdiction over there, if that's the agreement. In some cases, it goes into boxes in the, the CRM company's long-term storage, because that's the curation agreement. They have the storage facility for that. Or it goes to a state museum or a state curation facility or something along those lines. But either way, they're curated in some way. Like I said, whether they're given back to the tribes or depending on what it is. They're not always prehistoric sites either. Yeah. Sometimes they're historic sites and like literally just garbage. But nobody wants them.
I also want to say that's also like the rarer. That's like the last resort. Like generally our first resort is to leave it in place.
Yeah, if all we're doing is doing a field survey and we just photograph it, we move on. We photograph it, we document it, we move on. We leave it right there. We only typically will take it if it's a rare or special thing that needs further study. Like Clovis points are almost always, drop right into that bucket. Like if you're on a field survey, that no collect field survey, and you find a Clovis point, the first thing you do is you call the agency if it's the BLM. Yeah. And you say, I found a Clovis point, and they'll say, pick it up and bring it to us because they're rare. Yeah. And we can learn a lot about where they were found and a lot about the people through those tools. And we don't have a lot of evidence for those. So, but anything else you find that's rare, you're allowed to pick up, but you got to let people know. Yeah. But yeah, like Richie said, if we're doing any sort of excavation, whether it's shovel testing on the East Coast in the Midwest or pedestrian, not pedestrian, but testing or full block excavation anywhere, you just can't leave it in the ground once you've disturbed the ground. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's true. Oh my God. Yeah. You're welcome, Mark. But more importantly, getting back to that person who unfortunately passed away. It's like, you've worked in the Southeast. What was what's it like shovel testing this time of the year in the Southeast?
Dude, I don't even want to think about it. It makes me sweaty thinking about it. It is so bad. The bugs, the animals, are one thing. The weather is another thing. I mean, I know what time frame this is. This was just like 2 weeks ago. And in Louisiana, I've never worked in Louisiana, so let's start right there. But I have worked in Georgia, South Carolina, and probably one of the worst environments I remember working in was in Georgia. When I was in grad school, they were looking for people Well, one of the CRM companies that came by, it was an older guy who was a friend of the university and the people that worked there, and he'd come in and talk to us in a grad school class about CRM. And there was a time when we were between semesters, my spring semester and the summer semester, when he had like a 2-week project going on in Brunswick, Georgia. And he's like, if anybody wants to come out on this, I'll just, pay you like a field tech, like a normal job. I'm just, giving you guys some work. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I've never worked out there before. It was like so miserable. We started at 7 a.m. We probably should have started 2 hours before that, but we started at 7 a.m. And you walk out of your hotel room, your heavily air conditioned hotel room, and it's already like 90 degrees with practically 100% humidity, it felt like. And it was just, you walk out and you're drenched in sweat, and you have to drink more water than you think is humanly possible. And you have to, and then on top of all that, you're working and you're avoiding spiders, you're avoiding snakes, you're avoiding red ants, you're just, and then you're trying to do good archaeology, and you're trying to see stuff.
I don't think anything prepares you for like just, seed ticks or horse flies.
Oh my God. Yeah. Mark asks again, how often you come across poisonous snakes or bears or cougars. I've never seen any. It does depend on where you are. I've never seen any like bears or cougars or anything. I've seen snakes many times.
Amazingly.
Have you? Yeah. I suppose. Oh yeah.
And as far as snakes go, it depends, I guess, like on where you are, because like you and I have both been on projects where you don't really see a lot of snakes, but they're there. And then there are certain projects, like you said, where was it? When you guys were in Ridgecrest, you were like finding them all the time, and I was finding them in southern Idaho all the time.
Dude, so bad. Yeah, and it depends on the time of year too, right? If it's wintertime in the desert, you're probably not going to see any snakes because they're all bundled up and kind of hibernating. But if it's summertime, they could be out pretty much any time. It's really dangerous. Right. It's really dangerous when it's that time of morning where it's still cold and just kind of starting to warm up, and the snakes like to come out to heat themselves up on the rocks, and then you startle them. They use all their energy to like lurch at you.
One thing I will say though,
that's pretty much it, because you just scared the crap out of them. But I've seen go ahead. No, go ahead. One other thing I'd say I've seen, again, it's contextual and where you're at,
really?
But Florida, wild boars and alligators. Saw lots of those. Yeah, but, lots of those.
I was going to say that the one thing you should not do if you see a
terrifying
a rattlesnake is stand there, not say anything, and then point. Am I? Oh my God.
Oh yeah, you sound like you're speaking from experience, Richie.
Oh
no, we don't need to talk about that.
Speaking of this person, not the snake person, but this person passed away. I actually bought something that I never thought I would buy, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, because I have a soft-sided cooler for like my lunch, and I take it up the room and I stick it in the fridge, and then I make my lunch and put it in there, and then put my my freezer blocks in the freezer. That way, I just grab and go in the morning, and then for my drinks, I just like whatever temperature they are in the truck, that's what they are when I drink them. But for the first time ever, I actually brought like a lunchtime cooler. That's not a lunch cooler, but a drinks cooler. But not one of those giant ones, but like, a smaller one, like a 12-pack sized. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah. Yeti makes one of those, and there's a few Yeti knockoffs that make them too. And you don't need something that's expensive as a Yeti, because they're designed to like hold cold for, days and days and days and days, but you really just need it for a day. So, because you can always recool it overnight. So unless you're camping, then you might need something that lasts longer.
People are like changing them. How many companies are like looking at our companies even looking at like their procedures or their policies in the wake of, what happened.
Well, here's the thing. We were conscious about saying this on the last episode of the CRMR podcast.
That's true.
We don't know her cause of death, right? People are assuming because it was 107 on the heat index and it was her first day, and maybe some other factors. She's in Louisiana, she's in an unfamiliar area, all that stuff, that it was a heat related incident or a company policy related incident, like they were doing something wrong or something like that. But there's literally no evidence for any of that. She could have had
That's true.
she could have had a pre-existing condition she didn't know about, and she could have been standing in a shopping mall and dropped dead. You know what I mean? Like, it just, you can't say that even, her dying was even related to her being in the field right now, because we just don't know. But it did prompt the discussions about, just around working in those types of environments. One thing I will say, that according to the articles I saw about this, she was given CPR pretty much immediately, and it was admirable that they had people on staff that were certified to do that. That's important. It didn't work, and it probably wouldn't have worked. It's not, again, nothing againve them. It just might not have been something she could recover from. You know what I mean?
Mutual
no matter who was there.
Of ours who I've heard you owe a camera to, like but yeah, he was with a young hotshot crew chief who really wanted to keep him out there, keep his crew out there, even though there was a approaching thunderstorm, and they were involved in a chain lightning strike. Everyone, of course, except the crew chief, and they were like performing CPR on one person forever and saved her life. I mean, her life was never the same. None of their lives were ever the same. Like our mutual acquaintance supposedly has some form of brain damage from it. He's like mostly recovered, but still, like, that's
yeah, he started with a little bit of brain damage. No, I'm just kidding. He's a cool guy.
Oh, you do?
The girl, though, yeah, I know her. Still friends with her on Facebook. Ooh. Yeah. I knew her. She was on my crew in Utah. Yeah, when we were all out there together. And yeah, she's got lasting damage from that. It is never going to be the same. She can't work in archaeology anymore. She it's had to change everything. So she's permanently disabled, technically. So yeah. It's no joke, but then again, how do you make those calls? Right. I mean, should they have gone in sooner? Yeah, probably. But were there actual warning signs to that? Is there a predefined time which you could go in when there's an approaching thunderstorm? Because you just don't know how fast those things are moving sometimes, right? And they could change directions. There's all kinds of things that could happen. But
that's like the sort of thing where it's passed off, like it's passed through word of mouth or through people who knew what happened there, and it's just like something that a lot of people don't hear about. Therefore, it a lot of none of this discussion that's going on now has happened then. Whereas now, thanks to social media, like companies are actually starting to ask, like, maybe we should do a little better.
Yeah, right. Yeah, who knows? I mean, we should, but
I mean,
whether or not companies are is also the question.
God,
I guess
on that some companies, they have like they follow like what is it? Like, I don't know if it's like a Nevada thing or if it's a mine thing or if it's just something, that's like OSHA prescribed. But like, some companies follow that rule where it's like, what, 30 minutes or something after you hear a lightning strike or something, you have to sit in the vehicle. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what the prescribed rules are. Again, I think it depends on where you're at. It's going to be slightly different, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Because it's not just the lightning strike. I mean, if you hear thunder, there's plenty of areas of the country. Yeah, there's plenty of areas of the country where if you don't see a lightning strike, the thunder could just be like heat lightning, cloud to cloud stuff, and it's always cloud to cloud. Like it just doesn't hit the ground very often. If it doesn't hit the ground, you're all right.
No,
of course, you really shouldn't be out there in the rain pouring down either. If that comes and hail and stuff like that, you might get your vehicle stuck or
it's different depending on where you are. Like I've worked on mines where you had to have the special radio that they give you, and if they call it a red alert for lightning, you either follow the rules or you don't work there anymore. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So, anyway. Well, yeah, look for that episode to come out of the Sierra Mark podcast in a couple of weeks, and see what other research comes out of that.
Yeah.
This will all boil over soon enough, which is sad. And we just need. Yeah. Well, that goes back to my question though, because I think you turn it around and ask me what I pay for mail service. But if there was a service where you got not only obviously mail service, but I'm trying to figure out what other resources would be valuable to field technicians.
Pet services.
And I think having well-researched, well, maybe, but I think having well-researched information around, like local labor laws and things like that, because that was one of the questions we had. People don't often know what their rights are, and their company maybe doesn't even know either if they're smaller. And it'd be nice to have a common resource where you can find all that stuff. And you said pet services, but I'm thinking more stuff that can be done remotely, because we're trying to service people who are all over the country, right? And without local offices and things like that, it makes it really difficult.
Yeah.
But then along those lines, I'm thinking too about offering guidance and advice and, other things around just living better, as a field tech, everything from having special groups and stuff related to, say, cooking in a hotel room. It's always a popular topic, how do you live and stuff like that? How do you get your, best places to kind of get your car worked on, or things you can do yourself rather than trying to find a mechanic.
WCRM, they had like, instead of going to the mechanic, they had the mechanic come to them, which I'm not sure if that's common in like other parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, the one of the reasons I was off this week is because
makes sense.
I had to schedule a service appointment for my truck, and there were no rentals, even though I offered. I'm like, yeah, just throw me a rental, and I'll just go out. And they're like,
Yeah, and that's crazy. And there's the other thing too is, why not have RVing groups for field techs? Why aren't more field techs getting into RVing? And I think, again, it comes down to education. They think it's way more expensive than it is. Now it depends on what you're getting into. You've been looking a lot more at the trailer market, something you can tow with your Tacoma. Do you know, or have you looked into this? Because when you're talking about something that's, say, less than $25,000, do you have to pay cash for that, or are they doing short term or long term loans for stuff like that?
Well, basically,
are you aware of that at all?
Like RV length loans, but
because I wouldn't want to get like a 20-year loan on a $15,000 trailer, because that's going to end up being a $45,000 trailer.
In this business forever,
you know what I mean?
Because who was it? You looked at a trailer of a mutual acquaintance of ours, and that person thought, oh, I'm going to be in this. I'm going to give it at least a year, and she did not. She didn't even make it a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's because
that trailer was practically brand new. Yeah,
RV, maybe having an RV at the place is practical, but a lot of people don't think about the logistics of getting it there, especially if you don't already own a vehicle that is capable of moving the trailer of the size that you buy.
And you're totally right. That is the logistics behind it. I would love to get more field techs into the RVing community, because I think it's a great lifestyle. It already has support services, and there's RV parks in almost every single town. And, out here in the West, you can do boondocking, you can do all kinds of stuff. But like you said, how do you do it?
Well, yeah.
Do you have to buy an expensive truck that can actually pull around the trailer? Or, well, and if you go with something like what we have a Class A RV. You can kind of see the driver's seat up there in my shot here. But we have a Class A RV, but
True.
Ours is a gas RV, and we can only tow a smaller car behind us. Is that going to be adequate for your field work? Cost. You know what I mean? Or we do, and I feel like if we were shovel bumming right now, that we could make this work, because we can stay anywhere in the RV, and we can use the car to get to rendezvous points.
Check in with
stuff like that. If we need to.
God, how do I keep forgetting their podcast name? But you should check in with the dude who just started the bus life, like at some point, and see how he's liking it. Yeah.
Oh, David from Life and Runs. Yeah. Well, we might be able to do better than that, because I think I mentioned to you, we might be seeing him in August, depending on where he's at and where our route takes us. We haven't really planned that yet.
People have been wondering, when is the van life / RV life going to suddenly become less popular and settle back down? And I saw like 3 things that were super interesting. I saw 2 abandoned Toyota, one of those 2 abandoned Toyota vans, like the one that everyone been using for the van life. Like one of them had an orange tag on it, and the other's just been sitting in the driveway forever. But Yeah, and it's not because that Toyota makes bad vans. Their vans are
No, geez.
actually are just as over-engineered as everything else they make. But then when you add in the complication of everything has to be shipped from Japan, a lot of people like buy these vans and then they don't realize the correspondingly like higher maintenance cost. And more importantly, I'm not sure how familiar
Right.
you are with some of these
Yeah.
online auction websites, but there's like Bring a Trailer, and then the one I look at is oh shit, Cars and Bids. And I look at them, I look at vans on there, and they have been steadily dropping in price.
Yeah.
Like if you have 15,000, you too can also buy a Toyota van that you can park in the street and never move. Although it is kind of cool because I
Nice.
was thinking about it the other
Nice.
day. It's like, man, as someone who
Yeah.
does a lot of monitoring, instead of just sitting in the cab of my truck, it would be so handy to just have like, the space in the back where I wouldn't put a bed or anything back there. I would literally just take out the middle seat and then set up like a desk and just like be doing my work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that too.
Put your Starlink on the roof and
Yeah.
be good to go.
Because like,
Yeah.
like
There
you
you go.
monitored
There
and,
you go.
you spend a lot of time in the cab of your trucks. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of time in the truck. Yeah, a lot of time in the truck. But sometimes you couldn't count on getting your own van or whatever out there, depending on its
Well, that's
capability. Because sometimes your
about
monitoring
these Toyota
location
vans.
is
Like
not super
Toyota,
easy to get to.
massively over engineers them, and a lot of the ones I've been seeing here in town that have been abandoned or look like they're just, look like the person who bought them couldn't figure out what to do with them. They're all 4-wheel drive, and I'm like, man, just sell those cars. Like sell them, and I will buy them. But then again, I feel like a lot of people are like my mom, where she has like a Prius in her driveway, and she's like, who wants this? And I'm like, are you kidding? Like with the car shortage we have, like they will give you like 5,000 on the spot. But then she's like, no, that's a lie. Blah blah. She spends too much time watching Fox, so everything's terrible. Oh my God, that's the other thing that I had.
World's about to end.
Showing a quick thing about Chromecast and the fact that they're ads now. Like there's all the unskippable ads are all stupid political ads, and I've learned that if Democrats would just stop voting for spending, that cancer would end, and gas would be like 50 cents, and the paradise would be here, blah blah. If only only Democrats would stop would stop spending and like lower the taxes on the rich, everything would be beautiful. That's like what I've learned. Like I hate ads on YouTube so much.
That's all we got to do. Yeah, there you go. Solve all the problems.
Oh, by the way,
Yep.
how long? What time is it? Oh, good. So we're not that we're far in, but I know Chris might be tired of hearing about this, but I have been. Oh my God, I have been on like a deep dive for like bicycles. Or not bicycles, but electric bicycles. And the thing is, in the past year, there have been more changes than I observed in like the past 4 or 5 years. It's like super fascinating.
Really?
Yeah, because initially it was like for people who obviously those kits to like convert your bicycles have been around forever and they're of dubious quality. And then you saw the first bicycles, like the first rad power bikes. And those are mostly aimed at people who those were basically, they seemed to split along people who needed utility bikes or people who older people who just couldn't who just couldn't physically bike anymore, but they still wanted to get out there. And now, thanks to the rad power mission, I want to say, there's been like basically it started a whole new category of electric bikes for people who actually like bikes and like cycling. And they're all, the crazy thing is they're all about $1,000. And like the one I'm looking at right now, like is 33 pounds. And like, and it's like a real bicycle. Like if you looked at it, you would not be able to tell that it was an electric bike at all. And for people who are wondering, it's the one I'm looking at is the Ride 1-Up Roadster version 2. It is like a very Ride and then 1 and then up, and then the Roadster V2. It's like I think it comes in at like $1,100 or something. And it like if
I'm
you
looking
look
at
at
it right now,
you couldn't even be able to tell that it's a electric bike. Because and the only reason I am so high on electric bikes is because ironically, because all the damn scooters that have popped up in Reno. like it's just so handy to grab one and just like go places. And so I've been doing that. And I realized, oh my God, at the rate I'm spending money on these electric scooters, I literally could pay for electric bicycle within less than a year. and that's even though I'm not home a lot.
Yeah, totally. These is, and another reason for electric bikes, it's not just because people either can't bike or are lazy, which is what you get from the real biking crowd sometimes.
I know.
Is that, I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you're not a competition cyclist or somebody who just like, bicycles 100 miles every day, more often than not, when you get on your bicycle, you're off on either a pleasure ride or you just don't want to take your car and you're going to the store or something like that. So why not have something that's more utilitarian and that you don't have to, I mean, it's hard to not sound lazy by saying this, but it's just something you don't have to work as much for. You know what I mean? Like you just want to be out. Like a good example is when my wife and I were in Long Beach a few weeks ago, California.
Oh, really?
Sorry. No, Washington.
Oh, I was about to say
Beach, Washington.
I was like, I didn't know you were in Long Beach.
No, we were not. We were 1,500 miles north. But anyway, when we were out there, they had a really long, nice cement path along the ocean and, up to this lighthouse. And then we went down to this town and we had dinner and we came back and we did all of it on our bikes. And, it was with the wind and some of the hills and stuff. I mean, it wouldn't have been impossible to do on a regular bike, obviously, but we'd have been standing up on the pedals and we'd have shown up to the restaurant all sweaty and just, done all that stuff. But we were in like jeans and regular, clothes and stuff. And it was more comfortable to take a pleasurable scenic ride rather than have to work for it, so to speak. You know what I mean? I mean, you're still pedaling. Yeah. It's still work, but yeah.
Well, the thing is that's what I've been using these electric scooters for. Like when I don't want to haul out the bike, and show up all sweaty, I just need to get someplace. And the other thing for me is that the other day I was trying to get dinner at a restaurant and I circled the block so often looking for parking. I thought maybe it'd just be faster if I went home and grabbed the bicycle. I honestly was thinking that.
Yeah.
No.
You keep saying scooters.
Like
did you buy a scooter or do they have
like
rental ones now in town again?
Everywhere. Like everywhere I go. Yes.
Wait. In Reno?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lime tried to come into Reno and then got shut down. So who's there now?
Yeah.
Bird's there.
Yeah, but the thing is that, for the
that's
trips
new since we were there last.
I get the receipt and I'm like, my God, that was like just to go like 6 or 7 or 8 blocks. That's like a $6 round trip, $6 or $7 round trip. And I'm like, my God, at that rate, I may as well just buy an electric bike.
Yeah.
That too. Well, a bike's more fun for me.
Yeah, you may as well. Or an electric scooter. For that matter. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, but you've got like 8 bikes in your tiny apartment, and
thing is, I love bicycles. Like
scooters fold up smaller.
I literally just put a bunch of parts that I had ordered for it, and it's so pretty. I literally just kept it in my living room like for the whole week. Was just like looking at it.
Yeah. Could you imagine though getting like an off-road capable scooter with like bigger tires on it and just like pull the handle down and shove it into a compartment on the side of your camper top on your or your topper on your truck and then just like pull it out. I know they make them. That's what I'm talking about. Can you imagine if you like had one of those? You could just pull it out and just like truck yourself through the desert. That'd be awesome.
That Ride One Up bike has something I've always wanted. It's like one of the reasons why I'm looking at it. If you look at it really closely, it's one of the few budget electric bikes that has a belt drive, and and a belt drive is rated for, I think.
No.
I'm not sure about this one since it's an off-brand one, but the real Gates Carbon belt drive is rated for 10,000 maintenance-free miles. Yeah, whereas most people might not realize it, but
jeez.
Your average bicycle chain is only rated, at least in electric bike use, is only rated for 275 miles before you're supposed to replace it. Obviously, most people don't, but Oh, wow. I thought you would have had more than that.
Mine's got about 800 miles on it. Well, I haven't ridden it much since we got RVing taught, to be honest, because there's not there hasn't been a lot of occasion to ride it. It's less than you would think, to be honest. But no, I thought I'd find the most expensive what's billed as an off-road scooter for you. This is almost $5,000, but it's on sale.
God.
It's $4,690 from $4,890. So there you go. Yeah, look at that. Ridiculous. 103 pounds. My God. But it's so heavy.
Ooh.
But it's got a 90-mile range.
Oh my God.
And we'll do 60 miles per hour.
Well, that's the other thing. I was like looking at it on Google Maps, and I realized that the farthest thing I would ever use an electric bike for is like, 4 miles at most. Because, there are just certain places like Coffee Bar, not that anyone's gonna know a Coffee Bar, but Coffee Bar just opened up a new place that's like on, that's like on a pretty steep hill, It's on, yeah, and it's like that's literally only like 3 miles away, but because of that hill, I'm like, I don't, just like, whereas if I had an electric bike, it'd just be like, well, whatever, I'll just head over there now.
Yeah, that hill, I know which road you're talking about. I've ridden it because I've done the whole loop around Reno a few times.
Yeah,
and it is a monster. Yeah, it's fun to come down the other way, but it's a monster going up it. And just on like a regular bike, you'd be cranking up that thing.
Because one of
so
was it?
Yeah,
I've been following a bike review channel called Electric Bike Report, and one of their tests is to test a bike that I think they go like I want to say 0.3 of a mile, and the average grade that they go up is like 12%. I don't even know if how steep that is, but 12% supposedly is really steep, and so they torture test all these electric bikes. Because like I think that's for most people, that's like myself included, that's like the main thing you buy a electric bike for. It's just like I don't want to deal with that hill today.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. So.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start wrapping this up because I think we're going to take our bikes over to the beach this afternoon. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else we want to bring up in this episode?
Now that my place is straightened out and I can actually sit down in the kitchen and like do stuff, I can finally like get around to like non like house related stuff, like editing more videos, hopefully. Knock on wood. Oh, really?
Hey, I've got 2 videos edited for us. I just have to do some voiceover work for them. Yeah.
Anything you can discuss?
Yeah. Trying to move through the catalog. Now this is for my wife and I's private, not private, but like recreational channel, Roadster Adventures. But it's what are the 2 videos? Oh, one of them is about we did an overnight. We used Harvest Host, which is a service for like free. Yeah, we've been using it quite a bit. And this is one from a while back when we were in Georgia. We stayed in an alpaca farm in the middle of nowhere. And it was really cool having the owner take us around and, just in and amongst the alpacas and petting them and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a short one on that. Yeah. And then another one that's probably going to be even shorter. I might record a little more for this, though, just for explanation. But the actual video I've got is pretty short. But it's repairing one of the early first repairs we did in the RV that failed. Is called a PCS control board. It's the power control system control board, and the circuit board shorted out on it, and we had to have it repaired and replaced. And it was kind of a pain in the ass. So it's a video on doing that. But and
unlike other people, you'd actually
we're gonna have some shorter videos coming out.
Actually, are familiar with
we had a little bit, yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, it's interesting, and I've got some other. I've actually got some other repairs to do this week. I just got this burner and solenoid thing for our refrigerator. Our refrigerator's not switching to gas because this part right here has failed. And it's failed before, and now it's failed again. And I'm not really sure what the hell's going on there. But I got this. The only thing I could get was a used one here because new ones are months out, and we're never someplace long enough to get a new one delivered. So an RV tech in a place up here sold me this whole burner assembly, and I'm going to take this one off of here because I don't need to replace the burner assembly and see if that works. Because next week we're going to be off grid for 7 days, and it'll help out our battery system if our fridge can be on propane and not pulling juice from the batteries.
I'm not sure how many you probably follow like RV lifestyle channels, but I follow a lot of like, RV, like I don't even know what you'd call them, like RV tour channels where you just like, they just like they're like trying to sell you RVs, so they just like take you through them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really oh yeah, and one of the things that really impresses me is that
I
how
love
many
those.
new RVs and campers are now like boondock ready. They come with like those special AC units
A
that
lot of
like,
them.
that don't require you to be hooked up to shore power. They can literally just run on lithium, and then they got the 12-volt fridges that no longer, they just run off like solar too, and all sorts of cool things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even giant Class A RVs are coming with more solar power on the roof, and it's kind of a token amount of solar power.
Yeah.
Usually like 300 or 600 watts, which isn't enough to run a big Class A, but it's but it's expandable. They've already got the channels and wires and pathways, so you can put in more. And then the other thing is, I was talking to just an RV dealer just the other day. I was actually talking to a representative for Thor, which is a big RV maker. It was at an RV show in a couple places back where we were at. We went there, and he was a representative from the factory at this show, and we were talking to him, and I was like, we're standing inside of a $400,000 diesel Class A, and I'm like, it's got solar on the roof, it's got all kinds of fancy stuff inside. And I'm like, so is it still lead acid batteries? And he's like, yes, it's still lead acid batteries. And he's like, he thinks that the industry is going to be shifting to lithium at some point soon. Obviously, they're going to do it at some point in the future, but it's like, when are they going to do it? And he said it's just such a big infrastructure with contracts and installers and all the different things, and the spaces for lithium batteries are different than the spaces for lead acid, and it's just all that stuff in the supply chain has to be updated for them to do lithium. It's not an easy let's do lithium now.
Yeah.
So, and Silver joined. Yeah, did you see that?
Here.
Hey, Silver.
Oh man,
I haven't seen Silver in a long time. So
I was gonna say, too bad he wasn't at the last SCAs.
But I know, I don't remember seeing him there. If he was, he didn't stop by the Wild Note booth.
Are you gonna be there next year again?
Anyway, all right. Well, we got to run.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Where's it at? That's debatable because we might be in Europe. We're going to Portugal in January. We're going to stay in that area for a month, and we might stay in the EU for longer. We just haven't planned it out yet.
Oh,
cool. We're going there for the SHA. Yeah. We're going there for the SHA, really? And we're also going to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the Sierra Mark podcast there. So,
cool.
Yeah. No, Bill's going to be there. Bill White. Yeah, and Doug Rocks McQueen might be there. He's not sure. So, and those two of the people still on the show, those two were there from the beginning. So it'd be cool to, have them there.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we just might, since we're going to be there already, we'll already have done the plane tickets. We'll have the RV in storage in probably North Carolina where we're going to be at that time, and we're just like, why don't we? It's just, putting the RV in storage is only it can't be more than about $150 a month. Most of those places are pretty cheap because it's just a parking spot. And with our, that's true. And then it's pretty cheap to fly from Charlotte to Portugal. It's like $800 a piece. Yeah, round trip, which it's cheaper than flying across our country. So that's good. And since we're there already, and I've got several clients in that time zone, it behooves us to just kind of stay over there for a few months and just kind of bum around.
You were talking about the 10-year anniversary of the Sierra Mark podcast. As one of the few people who actually heard the pre-Sierra Mark podcast, I was realizing that what you were doing there is literally what you and Rachel do for the archaeology show, except now that you have someone to bounce off of, like, it's more lively, if that makes any sense.
I wouldn't say literally, because all I was doing was actually just reading news stories without any commentary whatsoever. And oh my God, it was so bad. Yeah, it was so bad.
By the way, anything you want to announce this week?
Anyway,
for anything coming up?
Yeah, thanks. I don't think so. We just there's a bunch of episodes coming out. There's the Heritage Voices this week, Dirt and Life and Ruins coming out this week. Archaeotech, it's an off rock art week, so that would be it. I think that's about it. Oh, the Architect podcast that's coming out on Thursday is with our guest co-host, Ed Gonzalez Tennant. And because Paul's still in Saudi Arabia. And Ed is kind of an expert in open source and technology and stuff like that. And he does a deep dive into getting started with QGIS. So for somebody who's someone who's never done it before, and he's got a whole free YouTube series on getting started with QGIS. So he's Archaeology on Anthroyety on YouTube.
I watched those. I tried watching those videos. You know, with varying levels of success.
Well, I have him go over the high level basics, like how to download it, the plugins to start with, the free plugins, and getting started with how you can get some data into it and getting data out of it and stuff like that. So we do a whole episode on QGIS. So it's good.
Slightly
really
off topic, but still on topic, is that I worked with someone recently who graduated with a degree in GIS and wants to really get into it, and kind of got pushed into doing archaeology, field archeology. And I kept suggesting to him, dude, just like advertise your services, you know, as a freelancer, because that's what you use, right? When when you're out on a project, you'll just send your data to like someone who is a freelancer. Yeah. Like you don't employ someone full time.
Yeah, I've got a couple. No, I don't need to. I don't do enough work, so I have a few people that I tap depending on my needs and their needs. If I need like heavy GIS work done, I'm not good enough to get it done in a time frame that I'm happy with, and I'd rather just send it to somebody who knows what they're doing. They can get it done in half the time, and
GIS
we can both make money.
So it's one of the few skills that you can get as an archaeologist where you don't need a company to start. You can just like start advertising yourself. If you don't want to do Uber or or
for sure,
or whatever as like your non-project month job. Yeah.
I would say, just wrapping this up, you got to be careful because you're going to be privy to sometimes confidential site information. So, billing yourself as a GIS technician for some place that you're
you need permits?
Potentially not permitted to work might not work. Right.
Oh.
Well, you might need to be on the company's permit in order to see their data, or you need to be permittable. Right. So like I'm talking about like agency permittable. If it's private land, it probably doesn't matter. It just depends on the company. But I would say look locally wherever you've worked in the past and see how that goes. And, you might have to get on their permit, which is not hard to do. They just got to make an addition. So, if it's federal work like BLM or Forest Service or something, BLM for sure, you need to be permittable to see confidential site data.
Interesting.
So, especially if they're sending it outside their office to somebody in their home, to their like GIS, machine. Gotta be careful with that. But it's not impossible. It's just something to consider. So, all right. Well, cool, Richie. Yeah, well, Richie's figuring out where the stop button is because that usually takes a minute. Thanks, everybody. And we will hopefully